A very tall son named Barron. He knew the youth vote. You know, we won the youth vote by 36 points.
Have the Trump boys ever piqued your interest? I mean, everyone has noticed how Don Jr., Eric, and Barron have been in the news recently, each with their own unique part to play in the Trump narrative. Their famous father is said to be an excellent provider for his family. The real issue, though, is whether Trump has a favorite son. Which one, if any, is that? Stay tuned, because you might be surprised by the answer. First up is Donald Trump Jr., Trump's first son and the most publicized of his offspring. He inherited the Trump name and the burden of the Trump heritage from the moment of his 1977 birth. Being named after Donald Trump is probably not the simplest job ever. Don Jr. had a tumultuous connection with his dad when they were kids. He avoided his father for a year after the divorce of his parents became public knowledge in 1990. Try to put yourself in that 12-year-old's shoes and deal with that type of public family turmoil. However, he did not flee the family company. On the contrary, he dashed headfirst for it. Don Jr. didn't rush into his career with the Trump Organization after graduating from Penn. Yep, the same school his dad went to. After a year of what he described as an ordinary life bartending in Aspen, he was dragged back into the family business by the weight of the Trump name and was helping out his father by 2001. The fascinating relationships between the father and son begin at this point. Don Jr. rose to prominence as a consummate negotiator within the Trump Organization. Instead of relying on his father, he was working hard on his own. He was in charge of large-scale construction projects, such as the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago and Vancouver. As a result, Trump Sr. took great delight in praising Don Jr.'s commercial ability, and the younger Trump was soon entrusted with more responsibility by his father. The 2016 presidential campaign, however, was when Don Jr. truly came into his own. Amazingly, he managed to get out of tight positions. Consider the meeting that took place in Trump Tower with the Russians. Even though it was a major issue for the campaign, Don Jr.'s decision to stand up for his dad demonstrated his willingness to do whatever it took. Don Jr. took over the role of his father's unofficial spokesperson with the conservative base throughout his father's administration. Whenever he could defend his father's views, he was out there, at rallies, on Fox News and Twitter, before it was X. The media even began to call him Trump Jr. because he began to sound strikingly similar to his father. Interesting enough, Don Jr. remained on the outside, operating the family business with Eric, while Ivanka and Jared maintained official responsibilities in the White House. But he nevertheless managed to have a significant impact on politics. His strategy on social media? Very much like his father's, brazen, unrepentant, and always causing a commotion. Their similarities extend beyond the ways they use social media. Observers of Don Jr.'s speeches have likely noticed that he has adopted many of his father's habits, including the use of hand gestures, the stressing of specific phrases, and even the now iconic Trump squint, comparable to Trump Sr., the early years. There were several points throughout Trump's administration when Don Jr. seemed to be the son who got it, the one who grasped the political and financial aspects of the Trump brand. Don Jr. had an ability to relate to Trump supporters that at times was comparable to, or perhaps superior to, his father's, whether he was campaigning in rural America or supporting his father's views on television. Can you still hear the cries of 46 from Trump rallies? Those were the people that were advocating for Don Jr. to become the 46th president. The extent to which Trump's supporters saw him as a future leader was demonstrated by that, even though it did not materialize. Trump Sr. has never been bashful about publicly complimenting his children, but what he has said about Trump Jr. is always fascinating. His political savvy and high-quality person status have been lauded by him. This is especially noteworthy coming from Trump, who is famous for his forthright criticisms of others. Instinctively understanding and amplifying his father's message to supporters, or being the first to defend him amid disputes, are two examples of the minor nuances that may reveal more about their connection than the major public occasions. This type of timing is the result of observing and studying for a long time. We should examine the more reserved Trump son, Don Jr., before we assume that he is Trump's favorite. The middle son, Eric Trump, is one of the more interesting parts of this family tree. Eric has been engaging in a somewhat different strategy, while Don Jr. has been generating headlines and causing Twitter storms. Eric, who was born in 1984, had a different journey than his brothers, but had the same idyllic environment. Going to Georgetown University was Eric's initial move toward forging his own identity inside the Trump world, in contrast to his brother's decision to follow in their father's footsteps and attend Wharton. Eric's management of the family company is fascinating. Eric was secretly running a large portion of the Trump organization, while Don Jr. became the public face of Trump's political base. He assumed leadership of the family's vineyard and golf facilities and did an admirable job, according to everyone. There were unique difficulties associated with Eric's position in the family firm. Does the Trump Foundation still exist? Eric contributed millions of dollars for cancer patients' families, while directing his own philanthropic foundation's focus on St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. However, everything took a turn for the difficult when his father ventured into politics. He seemed genuinely troubled by the fact that the foundation had to halt activities because of possible conflicts of interest. The challenging task of managing the family company during his father's presidency fell to Eric. They anticipated that he and Don Jr. would operate the Trump organization independently of their father. The brothers accomplished what seemed like an impossible feat. In contrast to his younger brother Don Jr., who was busy being a mini-Trump on social media, Eric became known as the calm, collected Trump son. Even though he never made headlines, he fought just as vehemently for his father. During his father's presidency, Eric had a passionate and professional style of justifying his father's activities when he went on TV. He came up with his own style rather than trying to imitate his dad's, and Trump appeared to like it. Being a Trump and being an individual are two things that Eric has successfully balanced. As a top counselor to Trump's campaign and anchor of real news updates, his wife Lara Trump became an invaluable asset to the Trump political movement after their marriage. It's as though Eric discovered a way to uphold the family name while establishing his own niche within the Trump organization. Also, he doesn't do public speaking the way Don Jr. does. Don Jr. takes after his dad, but Eric has honed a more businesslike style that would be at home in a boardroom. While he retains the ability to hurl blows when necessary, he prefers to employ PowerPoint presentations rather than unleash a torrent of tweets. Eric revealed a new side of himself throughout the 2020 presidential campaign. In contrast to his brothers, he fought fiercely to protect their father. Eric was more concerned with the legal and commercial ramifications, while Don Jr. roused audiences with speeches that mimicked his father's. Eric is notable for another quality. He is consistent. He has been extraordinarily consistent in his roles as head of the company and manager of the family brand. Eric has established himself as the dependable one, the steady hand, in a family notorious for scandal and media attention. Particularly in Trump's America, that is novel. In light of this, Eric may emerge as Trump's preferred son. He may not be the most outspoken or famous, but when it comes to running the family business, something that has always been important to Trump, he has been remarkably steady. Is Eric, therefore, the preferred son? We have to bring up one more Trump son before we can say anything else. Coming up next is Barron Trump, the youngest of Trump's sons and perhaps the most enigmatic of them. Barron became the first son of a president to dwell in the White House since the children of John F. Kennedy in 2006, when he was just 10 years old. His father became president in 2006. A distinct set of conditions arises when one is the youngest Trump. Barron, in contrast to his illustrious elder siblings, was occupied with being a youngster, albeit a kid in some very unusual circumstances. Envision yourself compelled to relocate to the White House while you are still a youngster. This is definitely not your typical homeschooling experience. Barron has created history in several ways, which is rather interesting. In addition to being the first president's son to occupy the Oval Office in decades, he also made history by attending St. Andrew's Episcopal School instead of the traditional Sidwell Friends, the school traditionally chosen for presidential children. The Trumps were independent even when it came to school choice. One of the few things the world has been allowed to observe about Barron is his physical growth. He is supposedly 6 feet 7 inches tall, which makes him taller than his father and elder brothers. There was a noticeable increase in his height with each visit. Even his father has made note of his youngest son's impressive growth in stature, gushing over it on many occasions. The media has paid close attention to Barron throughout his life, yet he has managed to avoid any major scandals. Melania Trump and Donald Trump have both been renownedly protective of their son. Don Jr. and Eric's upbringing in the limelight of 1980s New York is vastly different from this. Barron is quite proficient with computers, according to Trump. "Yes, I am a father. 10 years old is his age. He possesses computers." According to Trump, he possesses an incredible command of computers. As he grew up in the digital era, Barron seemed to be more adept at it than his elder brothers, who were learning the real estate ropes. Noting how infrequently Trump talks publicly about Barron could help provide light on their connection. He is much more reserved around Barron than with Don Jr. and Eric when it comes to displaying his pride. His only comments on him are that he is a great young man or that he is quite tall. During a speech, Melania showed Trump how children reacted to different vaping flavors. Trump made the mistake of saying, "She's got a son," before swiftly correcting himself to say, "We've got a son." This slip-up caused quite a stir in the media, but it did reveal an important aspect of the family dynamic, Melania's main role in raising Barron. If we're talking about family relationships, it's interesting to see how Barron interacts with his elder brothers. Barron had a very different experience as a Trump son than Don Jr. and Eric, who were preoccupied with campaigning and running the family company. His father has already served as president, and the Trump name has a different connotation now than it had when his siblings were his age. This is his world as he grows up. We know very little about Barron's hobbies and personality, which is one of his most intriguing traits. In stark contrast to his very public-spirited elder siblings, Barron has kept a very low profile. The youngest Trump son is mostly unknown outside of rumors about his passion for soccer and other sports. Melania and Donald Trump have taken great delight in their solitude. Their efforts have allowed Barron to have a childhood that is comparable to, if not identical to, his elder brothers, a life that is quite normal considering the circumstances. In a departure from his approach to parenting his other boys, Trump has said that Barron's childhood should be respected. It is worth mentioning that Barron appears to be following a different trajectory than his elder brothers, who also did not attend Wharton, much as their father did. Is he going to work for the family company someday, go into politics, or plot a whole new course? He may be considering entering the family firm while he is a student at New York University's Stern School of Firm. Who can say for sure, though? Trump appears to be a different parent to Barron than he was to Don Jr. and Eric, based on their connection. Perhaps Trump has been more distant and protective of his youngest kid due to Melania's influence, the changing times, or the lessons he acquired from parenting his elder children. Some have speculated that Barron may turn out to be the unexpected son. While Trump's siblings went in more conventional directions, business, politics, and public life, Barron has a chance to carve out a completely new identity for himself as a Trump son. It appears that his father is actually allowing him the freedom to pursue that path. Who of the 3 Trump kids truly has that unique position within their father's empire? Perhaps there's more nuance to the answer than meets the eye. Allow me to dissect it for you. Donald Jr., the namesake and most striking resemblance to his father, is the first to be introduced. His father's tenacity, charisma, and approach to social media have all been inherited by him. Perhaps Trump sees a younger, more fearless version of himself in Don Jr., one who is ambitious, vocal, and prepared to fight to the death. Does being the most like your dad automatically make you the favorite? After all, the Trump organization couldn't function without Eric. Eric was busy negotiating deals, growing the family's golf empire and maintaining operations while his father, Don Jr., was in the spotlight. Everyone knows that Trump is really just a businessman at heart, and they've certainly noted Eric's commitment to expanding the family enterprise. The Trump name was initially established in the business world, and he was the son who never lost sight of that. Last but not least, we have Barron, the unknown variable in all of this. He stands for Trump's legacy in an entirely different manner. Growing up in a world where the Trump brand already has significance beyond real estate, Barron is seeing life differently than his elder brothers, who were nurtured in the limelight of 1980s Manhattan. Not only is he a business magnate, but he is also the only son who knows his father in his official capacity as president. Trump has 3 sons, but which one does he love the most? Most of the time, when he brings up Don Jr., he is praising his political savvy or his charismatic personality. His financial achievement is the subject of his remarks of Eric. While he's with Barron, though, his tone changes dramatically, even while talking about insignificant things like his height. We can also make assumptions based on Trump's duty delegation policies. Barron was insulated from the spotlight when he entrusted various parts of his enterprise to Eric and Don Jr. during his presidency. Is America's #1 dad showing any partiality here? It appears that Trump's connection with each son has evolved according to their own needs and abilities. In the political sphere, he has served as a guide and supporter to Don Jr. As a business partner and advisor, he has worked with Eric. Also, he's been more conventional and protective with Barron. You could assume that Don Jr. is the favorite based on their public interactions. After all, he is the most famous Trump son and appears to have inherited his father's political instincts. You could reconsider after thinking about how much Trump depends on Eric's calm hand in business. Also, Trump's unusually protective parenting style toward Barron makes one question whether he's taken a page out of his experience with his other boys. Which one do you think will win? Perhaps it isn't the proper inquiry. It would appear that Trump has instituted a system where each kid is encouraged to play to his abilities rather than taking sides. Barron handles the financial empire, Don Jr. handles the political struggles, and Eric handles everything else. Barron has the potential to shock everyone. Depending on his son's individual traits, life experiences, and maybe even his own development as a parent, the father in this story has forged unique bonds with each of his sons. The question is not who he loves more deeply, but rather how his love for each of them differs. Now, what are your thoughts on the matter? Is Donald Trump actually more affectionate with one of his sons than the others? Post your responses down below. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to stay updated. We appreciate you taking the time to view our video and encourage you to hit the play button if you liked it.